Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at Ari Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
A twisted new season of The Traitors is finally here.
What did I get myself into?
The prize, $250,000.
I'm going to lie and cheat and do whatever I have to do to win.
If you're going to come for me, I'll finish you.
Shame on you!
I'm out for blood. It is like a firing squad. Boom, 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 boom.
Let the games begin. Emmy Award winner, The Traitors. New episode streaming Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Only on Peacock.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also, they're a literal vampire. And suddenly my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Welcome to NQ80 Daily. Today we're going to talk about the retirements of 3 former Manchester United players, legends, icons. I'm here with Wayne. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. I do find that journey to find the right descriptive for these players quite interesting.
Well, should we do a bit of football cliches ranking here?
Let's.
What is a legend? What is an icon? What is a great? What's the ranking? What's the top ranking?
Well, the point is that it depends on the club that you play for, right? Because Thierry Henry, as a statue at Arsenal, he's their top scorer, and he won 2 league titles.
Mm.
So the players that we're about to mention didn't become the top scorer for United, but they all won more trophies for United.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to talk about Rafael, Fabio, and Nani, who all announced their retirements within just a few days of each other. I did absolutely love the Manchester United Instagram post about Nani, which had him upside down. And thank you, Nani, upside down as well. Very nice.
Yeah, very good
stuff. Good stuff. Not one of yours, no?
No, but I know the lads, Jordan Ayre and Matt Burgess, who did that. And yeah, it's very good. Very, very inventive. I like it very much.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, incredibly long career that these players have had. I mean, you think Fabio and Rafael came to United at what age? 17, 18?
Well, 17, and they weren't allowed to play until they 18. So, yeah.
Right. And Nani arrived in, I should have got this data in front of me, 2006, 7, around about then?
7, just after we won the title. So he'd been at the club for a year before, 6 months, because the twins joined in January for training. But yeah, Nani and Anderson arrived. It was just after we'd won the league in 2007.
Yeah, right.
And we did the rare thing of strengthening from a position of strength, which we never used to do under Fergie, but we did that summer.
Yeah, normally we strengthen from a position of great weakness now. So Nani went on to play for a number of clubs, ended up playing in the MLS for a long time.
Yeah.
I went to Fiorentina, didn't he? Then played in the MLS for a long time. He even played in Australia for a little bit until he was basically 40.
Yeah.
Near enough. Incredibly long career. All right, let's talk about the impact of some of these players. So Fabio and Rafael came along, the Brazilian Nevilles, as they weren't generally called, but there's a temptation there, wasn't there? Like, incredibly talented, both a bit injury prone. I think that was probably the frustration of their time at United, right? They both spent a lot of time in the physio room.
Yeah. Fabio, when he arrived, because they were both Brazilian youth internationals, Fabio was deemed the higher talented player. I don't know if you remember.
The Phil Neville of the pair.
Well, yeah, actually, if you look about it, because Fabio did play in a number of different positions as opposed to Rafael, who was predominantly right back. You wouldn't play him anywhere else than that. And Nani always had that tag of the next Ronaldo, which was unfair, but someone had to carry it. And to be fair, he carried it well until the season where Ronaldo left and all that pressure was put on him. And the season in which he looked like he was about to get binned, and then he played at Arsenal. Can you remember? And he did that rainbow flick between the two defenders and scored. And right. I'm not sure if this went down as an own goal or not, because in some areas, if you look, I'm sure it goes down as a Nani goal. And if you remember the goal, what I'm talking about, where he flicks it between the two defenders and flicks it over the goalkeeper, if that goes down as a Nani goal, that's top 5 Premier League goal of all time. If you go back and look, because it's so surreal, but it looks like the goalkeeper just gets a slight deflection to sort of knock it in, which kind of almost spoils the aesthetics of it. But then after that, Nani had this rebirth where for maybe a year and a half, he was absolutely fantastic.
He did have absolutely brilliant data. For a few of the seasons, he's in well into the double figures. Yeah. Well into, this is like 15 goals and assists a season. Yeah. I mean, for a spell, an absolutely brilliant and pivotal player for United. Now, clearly, over the length of his career, he didn't have Ronaldo numbers. And during his time at United, there was a lot of frustration. I remember I did an interview with, it was BBC Radio Manchester or Five Live, I can't remember. It's back in the old days where the site was called United Ranked. And the first question they asked me, I think it was Steve Wyatt, actually. So being Radio Manchester, he says, "What's there to rant about? We're winning everything." And I'm like, Nani! Anyway, that's in the archives somewhere. But yeah, incredibly brilliant and incredibly frustrating at the same time.
He was. His ceiling was very high. But I think you're right. You would kill for that level of inconsistency now in the United team, by the way. But the one of my favourite memories of him was we played Arsenal in the FA Cup, and he was doing I think we were winning 3 or 4-0, and he started flicking the ball up, and the Arsenal players had completely lost their head at this point. In fact, they'd gone through a period of doing this, because this was the Wenger era of, you tackle and hurt Arsenal players. And I think it was the week after the infamous one where Eduardo had broke his leg and William Gallas sat in the centre circle crying. And the next week was like the test of their character. They came to Old Trafford. We put a second string out and we were battering them. So Nani's doing the dribbles, keepy uppies, and then I think it's Gallas. Someone goes in and absolutely cleans Nani out. And Arsenal didn't like that either. So they didn't like a lot of things. They didn't like showboating and they didn't like hard tackling. Difficult to know what would please Arsene Wenger, but we battered them 4-0. And Nani, his best run of form was probably 11-12. He scored a couple of goals in the Community Shield, and then we had that really good run of form at the start of the season where he was really good. I wouldn't say it's difficult to know, call him a legend. So how many Premier League titles did he win? He won 08, 09, 11, and 13. He would have played enough games to qualify in 13. So, so 4 league titles, which is comparable with the great Premier League players, really. So it's difficult to say that because he's in the comparison with Ronaldo, and he's so bloody unfair. Yeah. On his own merits, just a great Premier League midfielder, a great, I would say, but not elite. Great. His tendency to dribble was great. His tendency to score goals from distance, and like we've said, very cleverly executed finishes and stuff like that. There was a time when he looked genuinely like he'd be a first team player. But then I think injuries did for him as well, because there was one time I do remember we played an FA Cup game at Anfield and he had his shin cut open by Carragher.
Yes, I remember that one. Yeah, pretty unpleasant. Yeah.
And the story that I never liked about this, and this will segue into the Twins as well, because it was a story that came up when I was working with them on the book, that this tells you a lot about the mentality of this United team. So Nani was crying when he was injured. Now, if you remember that injury, you can go back and look it up. It it was an injury you would cry about having that happen to you. Like, by the way, so I'm not
cut to the bone. And didn't Carragher mock him for it afterwards as well?
Exactly. So. And what happened was, as Carragher told me this as well, because I interviewed him for another book. Carragher said Rooney had pulled him aside, and he was basically asking Carragher to shadow him because Rooney was laughing at Nani crying. Then when they got into the dressing room and Nani's getting treatment, Evra pointed to it, who was on the TV, says, What are you crying for? So they were actually saying he's showing weakness to them. And I think they were trying to make it more humorous. But I mean, when you look at it, and he never got sent off for it. I think he got a yellow card for it. It was one of the most disgraceful fouls that you've ever seen. He cut through, like you said, you could see the bone on the television.
Now VAR would certainly intervene with that one. But while we're talking about red cards and before we get on to a bit more about the Twins' career, of course, one of the iconic late Fergie moments was Nani's red card against Real Madrid. Completely unjustified. It's probably the most emotionally distraught I've seen Fergie as well, because he knew.
Yeah.
Right? He knew that was his last European game for United. And that, I mean, you can't say that United would have definitely won it, but we damn well would have been in a better position to win it with 11 men on the pitch. And it was just, he's going for the ball and they clash together. And I can't imagine with all the many, many replays today that would end up being a red card, but it's just a completely random piece of overreaction from the referee, and he's off and United down to 10 and we lose and we're out.
Yeah. Arbeloa as well, wasn't he? The former Liverpool player that had gone down. I do remember Rennie Mullenstein telling me about that, because Fergie was on the touchline and he was so animated and so furious that he refused to come back. He was like trying to urge the team and everything, so he refused to sort of come back to the bench and cool down. And in that time, Mullenstein and Phelan are trying to come up with a game plan in terms of like what we're going to do to take the sting out of the situation. In the meantime, I think Mourinho sends on Modric, and Modric scores almost straight away as well. So completely changes the pattern of the game. And that's all down to Ferguson's steam rising with the knowledge. Like I said, the only one, probably him, Joel Glazer and David Gill were the only three people in the stadium who, if Glazer was there, probably wasn't. So him and Gill were probably the only two people in the stadium who realised that would be his last European game. That was going to be the way that he went out, and it was. And I'm not so convinced that it wouldn't be given as a red card today, just because I'm not convinced in the quality of referees. But it was absolutely absurd, and you could see why it made him apoplectic. He didn't even talk to press afterwards, did he? Fergie?
No, it took a while, for him to discuss that one. Well, I suppose if David Coote had been on the snow, and he wouldn't have got that game, because, of course, he wouldn't have been able to referee an English game high as a fucking kite. Deary me. State of referees. Yeah, I mean, tragic end, in a sense, wasn't it? But all part of the narrative. The Twins, after they left, they went around the houses a fair bit, right? So Fabio ended up at Middlesbrough and Cardiff and Nantes. Am I getting the order right here?
Yeah, I think so. Just about, because there was Ollie took him to Cardiff.
Yeah.
Middlesbrough, a bit of a cult hero there. They liked him up there, and he played against United a little bit later on. And QPR he played at. He was on loan at QPR.
He was on loan at QPR, yeah. Around about 2012-ish, yeah.
Nantes, very good friends with Emiliano Sala, the forward who died in the helicopter crash.
Plane
crash. So. Yeah. No, small plane.
Yeah.
Small plane.
Small plane.
Yeah. Obviously, everyone knows what I'm talking about there. So then they went back home. So Rafa's path, obviously, he went to Lyon. He was there for a while, and then he went to Istanbul, Başakşehir, if I've pronounced that horribly wrong, and was man of the match against United, as we talked about on this podcast. I'm pretty sure I think so. But he was there then, man of the match in that game, and then he went back home to Botafogo. Fabio went to Gremio. They both kind of went at the similar time.
Yeah.
Knew that they would be seeing out their careers there, and I think Fabio had a lot of career serious injuries, and I was working with them through lockdown, and Fabio just suffered an injury that they thought might end his career, and he was on the fight back through that while we were working. So I'm aware firsthand of what he was going through, and Fabio, I mean, working with him, I know this isn't about me, it's about them, but I just want to tell people a little bit more about Fabio, because people will say they'll look at Rafael as having achieved more at United. So I'll tell you a little bit about Fabio. There's a story. We were playing Everton. So there was a period of time, I'm sure you'll remember this, where Fabio broke through as the first choice right back for maybe 6-7 months. The period where we won the 19th title and we got to the Champions League final, and he was the first choice pretty much for that run-in. And he deserved it because he'd been really patient and waiting for his chance. He was never going to get in at left back, regardless of his injuries, because Everton never got injured. So he needed to wait for that time, and he was rewarded. We played Everton late on in that season, and at half time, Fabio was that anxious. Have I told this story before on this podcast?
I don't think so, no.
Fabio was so anxious at half time that he threw up in the toilets, and he was scared that basically what had happened is he'd gone in, he tried to be quiet, but he'd thrown up, he was so anxious. And then Fergie was in the toilet, so he heard Fergie cough. So he knew that Fergie was there, and he was terrified that he was going to get taken off. You know, like he showed that he'd had a weakness or something like that. And he didn't. Fergie left him on, so he knew that he'd heard him, and he left him on, let him play the full game. And then United won 1-0 late on. I think Hernandez scored the winner, and Fabio after that felt more bold that that the manager had faith in him. He didn't have to worry so much about that his chance in the first team could come and go so easily that he was going to be given more of a chance. But I mean, the point is that that's how much it mattered to Fabio. And in that run of games, another Arsenal Cup tale, you remember we played six or seven defenders, and Fabio and Rafael were named as wingers. And Fabio scored. They were named as wingers, and the point was to stop Arsenal playing, was to stop Fabregas getting the ball. So their mandate was just playing that line between it and stopping getting the ball. Ends up that Fabio ends up scoring, and he run himself into the ground so much, put himself all over the place, that he was brought off at half time in that game because he'd worked himself up so much. But he'd already decided the game by then. And then they've gone back home, and Fabio obviously has come back from his career threatening injuries, and just to come back from the kind of injuries that he had to get on the pitch again was a massive, massive achievement for him. So there's that to be said, because I think they were advising that he should retire when he was at Nantes. So to get out of that and go back home and play some games for Gremio was brilliant. And Rafael's journey, because he went back to Botafogo, which is their hometown club, which is the club that they both always wanted to play for. Obviously, it didn't work out like that for Fabio, but it did for Rafa. And we were speaking last week that they got to the Copa Libertadores, the final I can't pronounce, but they won that.
Libertadores.
Yeah, that's the one. They won that, but he wasn't in the squad, but he did get a medal because he played some part in it, or he was on the squad list to get a medal. However, they had the league final this weekend.
Yeah.
And the odds were in Botafogo's favour. They just had to better the result of the nearest rival. So what happened was they went 1-0 up early on, but then it went to 1-1. In the last minutes of injury time, Rafa was brought on because the other team was losing, so the celebrations were already starting there anyway. Rafa was brought on, and they love him there, even though he's not been able to play a big part because he's had a massive knee injury, which has eventually cost him his career. So whether or not he was actually fit to play is another matter, but he was on the pitch to see out the final seconds of it. And then they went and scored again in the last minute to win to win the league in more convincing fashion. So, and if anyone's followed their story, Botafogo, there's a team who were in the second division a couple of years ago, and the climb has been incredible to where they are now. So for him to finish the career, and they both finished their career this weekend, and for what they've achieved, I mean, just to tell you, these are lads who played in the favelas and everything like that. And their only goal in football was to make sure that their mum and dad wouldn't have to work again. So to have the ambition, they didn't even have the ambition to think we'll play for the biggest club in the world and we'll win. Like Rafael's first club trophy was the Club World Cup in the 08-09 season. He played in that final.
Course,
and he was like, this is the pinnacle of club football. How does it get any better? And obviously they both played in, and not just like playing for United at that time, but it was the most historic period in terms of beating Liverpool to league titles. And And Nani was in that as well, of course. And I think, like, yeah, all right, we talk about there were probably 3 squad players, probably won't be building statues of them, and they probably won't be described as legends of the club. But if they'd be anywhere else, the medal haul would definitely be worthy of that description. And
oh, that's right, yeah. But Botafogo, interesting, aren't they? Because they're part of the Eagle Football Group. So it's Crystal Palace, John Textor.
Yeah.
Lyon, who are in deep financial trouble with the French Football Federation. Textor may not have enough money, so we'll see whether Botafogo remains part of that group. Iconic kit, not one of the great Brazilian sides. I mean, I think it's fair to say historically not one of the big ones.
Only the third league title this weekend, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, what a way to finish your career for Rafael and Fabio at Gremio and Nani announced his retirement. 3 icons, legends, great players. We hadn't quite decided where they rank, but enough league titles to get several statues at Arsenal, Liverpool. They'd have the stadium named after them at Newcastle. So, all right. Well, we'll leave it there for 3 former United players who've retired this week. Good to remember their time and their contributions to the club during what was a fantastic period for United. One day we'll get back there, Wayne. We may be in our 70s by then.
Right.
One day. All right. Thank you, everyone. Catch you soon. Bye now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Comfort is often the first thing we're willing to give up. But don't let style be the reason you aren't comfy. Mack Weldon's Ace Collection makes it effortless to look put together while feeling truly comfortable. Inspired by their best-selling sweatpants, the Ace Collection combines everyday comfort with long-lasting and confident looks. Upgrade your collection for the new year with new bomber jackets, half-zips, sweats, crew necks, and much more. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code MAC25.